peers. And I want to ask you a question. And of course, when I ask the question to you, I am also listening. So, are you out of balance? Are you a little bit out of balance? Is it work that's out of balance? Or is it your closet that's messy, or your drawer, your car? What else is out of balance? Could it be your nutrition? Could it be your marriage or your hydration? Sometimes we get a little bit out of balance. And when you become aware of it, then you tune into what it is that you need to tweak. Well, today, after several years of an absence in the classroom, I am excited that world-renowned New York Times bestselling author, professor, researcher, activist, and musician, which is one of my favorite musicians, Dr. Neal Barnard, is in the classroom, and we're going to be talking about the keys. Because if you don't have your keys, you can't go anywhere, right? You're like always searching for your keys. Well, this time we're going to give you some nutritional balancing keys. So, my name is Lillian McDermott, and I am the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show Classroom. I'm also a certified life coach. And if you're here for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dream. Well, as we started reconnecting with Dr. Neal Barnard, I showed him the last time is this book, Your Body in Balance, as good 3 years ago or 2020 as it is today. And so today we're going to be talking about nutritional balances. And I'm sure that Dr. Neal Barnard is going to have great updates for us since he's been in the classroom. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Neal Barnard is in the classroom. Thank you so much, Dr. Barnard.
Hi, Lily. It's so great to see you again.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So I know that a lot has happened and years have gone by, and I've got new people that are watching and learning and growing from the classroom. So share a little bit about your background and what led you to the balance you find today.
Well, what a big question that is, certainly, I have to say. I grew up in North Dakota in the Midwest, eating all the wrong things, I have to say. And as time went on, I started to perhaps learn a better path. And I went to medical school here in Washington, D.C., and started an organization called the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And here we try to make research something worth doing. We study how different diets affect our health. And we have set about really trying to change the approach to getting to a healthy weight, getting to a healthier blood sugar, getting our cholesterol down. And as time has gone on, we have been really all about plant-based diets in particular, and that's maybe good for your heart a little bit too, in more ways than one. So those are the things that we have been doing here over quite a number of decades now.
Well, I know that plant-based is a passion. And so when I heard you tell me a little bit about yourself today, my question came to why? Why did you start Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine? Why did you start it? Because you could have been doing anything else. You could have been in your practice. I believe you're originally a psychiatrist.
Yes, I trained in psychiatry, yeah.
Yeah. And so here you find the importance of nutrition. What was your moment that you thought, you know what, I need to start this?
There were a couple of things that hit me. The year before I went to medical school, I had a job in a hospital in Minneapolis. And in the basement of the hospital was the hospital morgue. And this was a rather grim place where if a person died in the hospital, that's where they went. And my job was to help the pathologist. And the pathologist was a physician whose job it was to figure out how the person died. And so I would be there to help him do autopsies. And one day we had a person who died in the hospital of a massive heart attack, probably from eating hospital food, but that's another story. So anyhow, the pathologist said, well, we've got to examine the heart. And to do that, he took off a big chunk of ribs from the front of the chest. And you don't do this with great delicacy. You take what looks like a garden garden clipper, and he went crunch, crunch through the ribs on this side and on that side, pulled the ribs off the chest, and he said, Neal, look inside. There's the heart. And he opened up one of the coronary arteries, which is, these are the arteries on the surface of the heart. They carry oxygen into the heart muscle itself. And he said, look inside. He sliced it open, and I looked in, and it was clogged up like a rusty pipe. And he said, bacon and eggs, Neal. And what he meant was the foods that I had grown up on and so many other people had grown up on had cholesterol in them and had fat in them, and that led to heart disease. But then we found that the same artery blockages were all throughout the body, in the arteries to the legs and to the kidneys and to the brain. And at the end of the examination, he wrote up all the findings that this person had systemic atherosclerosis and had died of a myocardial infarction. And he left the room. I had to clean up. So I took the organs that yeah, exactly. This is my job. So I put the organs back in the body cavity. I took the ribs that he had removed and wrote on the tabletop. I put the ribs back in the chest, and I sewed up the skin, cleaned everything up. This was a couple of hours. So I had missed lunch. So I went up to the cafeteria afterward, and I said, is there anything left? And they said, yeah, here you go. We got a plate of ribs for you.
Oh, oh, oh,
I want to tell you something. it,
oh.
it looked like the dead body. It smelled like the dead body. And I found myself thinking, wait, this is a body, not a human body. But I got to tell you, I didn't become a vegetarian on the spot, but I couldn't eat that. And this started to work on my brain a little bit, as you can imagine. Now, going back in time, I grew up in North Dakota. My grandpa was a cattle rancher. My father grew up in the cattle business. He didn't like it. He went to medical school. But I have driven cattle to slaughter. I had done this as a youngster and had hunted and all this stuff. But I started to kind of get some flashbacks that maybe this was not exactly the right thing to do. So about a year or two after that, I was in medical school. And one day in medical school, it was dog lab. And the instructor said, get your dogs, and we're going to do the experiments today. And we knew exactly what he meant. It was not exactly a hazing experience, but it was not entirely educational. You would take a dog, and the dogs are scared, and you pick them up, you put them on the table and tape them down, and you're supposed to give your dog an injection of epinephrine or norepinephrine, and that makes their heartbeat faster, and you write that down. And you give them propranolol, and their heartbeat slower, and you write that down. And you do various experiments, and at the end of the afternoon, your dog is dead. And anyway, when they announced this to the class, we all knew what this was, and I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to participate. And he said, well, I'm not asking you. This is a requirement. And I said, I don't care. I'm not going to do this. And I wasn't a cocky student or really rebellious student, although I did think I was smart enough that I didn't need to kill a dog to learn how to practice medicine. Sure. But I also just thought that you're killing two things. You're killing the dog, and you're also killing that part of the student's brain that differentiates, well, that respects life. So anyhow, I finished medical school. I never killed anybody. I didn't do the dog lab. And since that time, I talked to many medical students who regretted it. And so when I started the Physicians Committee, the whole point of it was to look at what diets are healthy for us. How do we prevent disease? How do we eat in a healthful way? But also to look at how do we do research studies? Do we do them in a way that's harmful? Are we killing animals to try to find things? Or are we looking for smarter ways to do our work? So that's why I set this all up. And for me personally, it's been a really good thing. I got to tell you, because there's nothing like taking the bacon off your plate to make you into a healthier person. So that's really kind of been our journey.
Wow. In all the years that you've been coming into the classroom, because you've come quite a bit, this is the first time I asked you why. Why did you start this? It just, you've been doing this for such a long time that we know you as the founder of this foundation, or this place that's holding a mirror to the industries. And as you were telling the story about that dog, I don't think we would have any problem if a cow in our view, or a pig or a chicken was our pet, and we love that pet. We would not think twice of allowing it to live. We would never think twice about causing it harm. We'd never think that we would never want that to happen to our pet. But then there's a disconnect that happens, like right in medical school, I'm hearing you say that they want you to disconnect with life. And
Yes.
wow.
Yes, that's right. And early on in life, children learn to mistrust their instincts.
Mhm.
That's not all bad. The child doesn't want to go to the dentist. The kids want to do a lot of
You
things.
don't want to brush your teeth. That's one of the things.
Exactly. So parents teach the child to, in some ways, mistrust their own impulses and to do what society tells them to do. And that's a good thing in many ways. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And you
Yeah.
learn to do things that are against your own judgment. However, this gets us into trouble in many ways because kids have affinity for animals.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing the comedian, I don't know if you remember Sarah Silverman, the comedian who wrote a book a number of years ago, and she described an experience about why did she decide to change her own diet. It was because when she was about 6 years old, it was Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was approaching, and her father brought her to the neighbor who had turkeys. And the neighbor said, well, pick out the one you want. And she looked at the turkeys all clucking around, and she said, that one's really cute. I want that one. So the neighbor took that turkey by the neck and cut his head off.
Right in
And
front of her?
yeah, in front of her. And as you can imagine, what's it like for a 6-year-old girl to see an animal slaughtered and blood everywhere, and an animal you had just a minute
Picked.
earlier picked out and looked into their eyes and felt affinity to. And you hear many cases of that where kids go through that. Now, for most kids, they learn, wait a minute, I'm being a sissy. I shouldn't be soft-hearted. And they integrate that message. She didn't. She said, wait a minute, this is a horrible thing I never want to have anything to do with for the rest of my life. And she's been honest to that. But we learn these rules. And we learn this is an animal like a dog that you can't eat, but this is your pet. But you can eat a chicken or a horse, or a chicken or a cow or something. Now, if you're in France, you can eat a horse. In the United States, you can't. If you're in Korea, you can eat a dog.
Yes.
Or China, you can eat a dog. So the rules aren't the same in different countries, but the rules are kind of set. And then we do what our culture thinks is right. And then when I was a kid, I thought it was a normal thing to have a heart attack if you're 50. My grandpa had a heart attack at 50, and that's normal. And he was dead by age 62, totally normal because he was old. You think, wait, maybe this culture isn't what it ought to be.
Yeah.
Maybe we have a power to change our thoughts, to change the rules that we've been given, to respect what our parents were trying to do to guide us in a good direction, but to realize there are times where you got to think for yourself. And so for me, that's been a journey from my cattle ranching ancestry in the Midwest to a different view of the world today.
Yeah. I'm so glad I asked you that question because, for anybody who can, and any of you who this resonates with, I want you to make a comment. I want to see if this is something that resonates with you. It certainly resonates with me. I haven't had beef or pork in like 30 or 40 years, and I've been whole food plant-based for quite some time, but occasionally I will have animal products. I will tell you that. And this has just been recently, not in the past, because Vegan After Vegan has been coming into the classroom and talking about there's a balance too. There's a balance between animals. And if you don't eat animals, what you will get out of balance is B12, zinc, EPA, DHA, EPA. What can you say to kind of like calm us down when it comes to if people choose not to have any animal products, nothing, no milk, no dairy, no eggs, no cheese, nothing from an animal that is produced. Some people go to the extreme of honey. That doctors that have been vegan have said my DHA is off, or my zinc is off, or my B12 is off. What do you say to kind of balance that? Because this is a class about balancing. How do we balance that if we choose ethics and over that?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's a terrific question. I don't think the balance is between eating animals and eating plants.
Okay. Good.
We're herbivores. We're not cats and dogs. You know, a cat is a carnivore.
Mhm,
Your cat can live on meat quite happily.
mhm.
Um, your cat synthesizes vitamin C in the cat's body. You don't. You need plants, fruits to give it to you. So we come from the family of chimpanzees and orangutans and gorillas and bonobos. Those are the great apes. And when Jane Goodall went to Tanzania and started looking at what chimpanzees ate, none of them ate any ice cream at all. Now, a chimpanzee might have looked down from the tree and said, "Hey, how about a little balance here? You know, couldn't I have at least one ice cream cone a couple of times a week?" And the answer is no. You're a chimpanzee. Don't you know where dairy products come from? So maybe to start it off easily, dairy products are a real obvious example because no animal consumes the milk of any other animal at all.
Agree.
That just never
Agree.
happens. They don't even consume milk from their own mother after
Yeah.
the age of weaning, which
Mhm.
comes as early as possible.
Yes.
So the reason that human beings consume dairy products, milk, cheese, yogurt, is that people, 10 or 12,000 years ago, figured out how to make a cow stand still. And they have to do something really creepy. And I'm going to tell you what it is. And I apologize if this sounds gross, but it's good for people to know. And this happens in Wisconsin, this happens in New York, it happens in Florida, it happens in Delhi, it happens everywhere, is that some underpaid farmhand sticks his left hand up the cow's rectum. And through the rectal wall, he feels the uterus and holds it still. And then with his right hand takes what looks like a knitting needle, jams it through the cow's cervix. It's loaded with semen, which he pumps into the cow's body and makes her pregnant.
Mm.
Sounds sickening,
It
but it's only
does.
beginning. 9 months later, she gives birth. She gives birth to a calf. The calf looks up at mom. The mom looks down at her baby, and the mother-infant bond starts. She starts to make milk to nourish her baby. Human beings say, wait a minute, you're going to give your milk to your baby? The whole point of this exercise is I'm going to take your milk. So the baby is put in a wheelbarrow and taken away, and the mother will never see her baby again.
Mm.
And she will follow that wheelbarrow until the gate slams in her face and she stands there and she cries out because the strongest bond in the world is between a mother and her infant. I don't care what species you are.
Yeah.
And anybody who raises cattle knows for dairy knows exactly what I'm talking about. If that calf is male, that calf will be dead very soon for veal because this calf has no purpose on a dairy farm. If the calf is female, she'll be kept in isolation for about a year until she's old enough for her to get impregnated. Then by about age 4, the mom has been impregnated and delivered and separated from her babies about 4 times. She is then hung up by her leg and her throat is slit and she's turned into low-grade hamburger because she's not producing enough milk anymore to justify her existence. In nature, she'd live to be about 20. On a dairy farm, she's dead at 4. So the reason I'm telling you all these creepy things is that it helps us to see the world as crazy and as out of balance as it ever could be. There is a balance where human beings see animals. You might see them in the woods, you might see them on their terms.
Yeah.
But the idea to say, well, I'm going to take you and I'm going to regulate your reproduction, and I'm going to take away your offspring, I'm going to sell them for meat, and I'm going to consume the milk that you made for your calf and call that normal. That's really kind of psychopathology disguised as civilization.
Yeah.
Now, nature gets the last laugh, though, because she's pregnant 9 months out of every year. She's making estradiol in her pregnancy. It gets into the milk, and that female sex hormone is getting into your body. And it leads to increased risk of breast cancer, increased risk of prostate cancer, all kinds of issues that are entirely culturally based. So you asked me about balance. When it comes to let's say my daughter likes broccoli. It's all she'll eat is broccoli. I could say, sweetheart, you got to eat something else. Broccoli is great for you, but you need balance. She likes the violin. All she does is play the violin. She doesn't play sports. She doesn't go to school. Sweetheart, stop it. An hour of violin, maybe 2, fine. You got to do some other things. But then she says, Dad, how many cigarettes can I have today? I'm going to say, like, none. How many lines of cocaine can I do? None. How much heroin can I shoot, Dad? None. Balance makes no sense when it
Right.
relates to things that harm you.
Yes.
So that's really the point.
I think this is a great conversation and a perspective that we all need to hear because just like in medical school, you're supposed to desensitize yourself for life. The same thing has happened for us in life. We have been desensitized to holding life sacred to the point that if you stand for life, you're picketed or shot, if you or said that there's something wrong with you. Life is important, and it's not up to us to decide that life that it will be taken. And so part of balance, and like you said, that balance of making the decision, you made the decision to walk away and say, I'm not doing this. I am not going to torture an animal. That's what psychopaths go to, that's when you see a child that is hurting animals, they're destined for something psychologically damaging in the future. We know this, but yet it is part of culture, and it's celebrated and hunted and all those things. So the people that ignored their intuition at that moment, they felt regret. The people that do certain things in life, they feel regret. We feel regret, but we don't know the root cause because it's celebrated. And so that leads to a lot of out of balance situations. So when it comes to nutrition and food, are you saying that B12 and zinc and DHA, EPA, those can be received in other ways?
Oh,
So
yes.
so let's talk about when you create that balance, how do we create that balance with supplements or in other ways with nutrition?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's all really, really pretty easy. The only one that you should supplement is B12.
Okay.
Um, and there are others that you could supplement if you want to, but B12 is a funny vitamin because it's not made by animals or plants. It's not made by either one. It's made by bacteria. And so some people will say, well, prior to modern hygiene, the bacteria in the soil or on the plants that we would consume would give us that tiny trace, that 2.4 micrograms of B12 that we need. Now, those days are long gone. Um,
Yes.
and so in the modern hygienic world, B12, there is B12 in meat, because, and it's not that the cow made it, but it's the bacteria in the cow's gut that
Okay.
made it. But you can get it, it's in every multiple vitamin you ever took. And it's so really easy to supplement. Vitamin D is something that comes from the sun.
Yeah.
Omega-3s are the only omega-3 that is physiologically required is alpha-linolenic acid, and it's in plants. And then your body lengthens it through enzymatic action into EPA and DHA.
Okay.
Now that process is really slow, that process of lengthening it. So it can get goofed up if people eat a lot of other fats that preoccupy the enzymes and slow them down. But if you get those out of the diet and you eat lots of vegetables that have the healthy alpha-linolenic acid in them, you're getting omega-3. Now, if you want to, you can supplement with omega-3. You don't have to, and it's controversial, but you can. And there is fish-based omega-3, and there is vegan omega-3, and they're equivalent. The fish one smells a little worse, but it's the same thing.
And taste awful.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
taste
So
awful. Yeah.
and I'm not necessarily recommending supplementing with omega-3, but if you want to, you can go online and order DHA and EPA, vegan DHA, EPA. It's made from algae, which is where the fish got it. Fish are eating the algae, and that's where their omega-3 come from. So you're getting it from the original source, and it doesn't have any odor at all. So
Very
you can have
good.
it if you want.
So what about nuts and seeds, and like, for example, walnuts, or what is the flax seeds
Yeah.
for?
Or
Okay.
chia seeds. Yeah, exactly. Well, they have a lot of the ALA in it, the alpha-linolenic acid. That's the basic omega-3. And so there's lots and lots and lots of them in it. But and they're fine, but you don't have to even have that. Let's say you take a sprig of broccoli or some spinach or a stalk of asparagus, send it to a lab. They'll say to you, there's traces of fat in there. You wouldn't think of it, but they're tiny traces of fat. And a lot of that fat proportionately, there's not a lot of fat in there, but a lot of the fat that is there proportionally is high in omega-3. And so if you're a person kind of like our chimpanzee, gorilla, orangutan, bonobo cousins who eats a lot of these plant foods, you get a boatload of omega-3 that your body then processes.
Very good. Very good. I wanted to propose that because I've been getting some feedback from people, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be another way. And so supplements to me are not, I mean, I take supplements, but if you can get it from your food, then great. That's a good way to do it. Okay, so let's talk about the balance of, because I know that I wanted to hear the study that you did with food and breast cancer. And since we're in October, breast cancer awareness, so what can you share when it comes to nutrition, balance, and breast cancer?
Yes, there have been a number of really important things. We discovered breast cancer is driven in part by estrogens, and these are the female sex hormones. And the breast cells have receptors on them, which is like a little docking station. And the estrogen, in this case, estradiol, attaches to it, and it can drive a higher risk of getting breast cancer. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's estradiol in dairy products. So getting away from dairy is kind of job one, but we've gone more than that. It turns out that there are also certain foods that will influence this. Estradiol can be increased by having more fat in the diet, which is not a good thing. And estradiol can be reduced by having high fiber foods. Fiber in your digestive tract grabs that estradiol out of the blood, and you literally flush it down the toilet. Now, researchers have been tracking that because they wanted to reduce breast cancer risk. So when women are on high fiber, low fat diets, they tend to do much better. However, once you discover that it works for breast cancer, it works for all kinds of other things. It works for things like menstrual function. And we did studies on menopausal hot flashes and other things, finding that we could change our risk of all of these things by changing the foods that we're eating.
So this also affects our hormones, because you were talking about the cow that has the milk that is injected with estradiol, and that ends up in our milks and cheeses and dairy, whatever it is that we're consuming from that aspect. And also when an animal is tortured, we're also receiving those hormones as well. So let's talk about that balance of hormones, because, and for those of you who have not purchased this book yet, you want to get it. And this was a pre-pandemic book, and so it's still as good today as it was back then. Your Body in Balance with Dr. Neal Barnard. And he also, there's some recipes from, was it Lindsay Nixon? That's
Exactly.
and the recipes are really good. I was going back to them and I was looking at their desserts, and so they look pretty good. So with that in mind, let's talk about many women find themselves out of balance with their hormones. And so what does this doctor do? Oh, prescribe more hormones. And so how can we get that body in balance when it comes to, you said high fiber, low fat, but will that also help your hormones?
Dramatically. I was sitting at my desk here one day and the phone rang, and it was a young woman who had menstrual cramps. And she was calling me because she wanted me to give her a pain prescription for pain medicine. And I said, well, I can do that. I can give you some pretty strong painkillers that'll get you through the next couple of days and wipe out your cramps. But I found myself thinking, well, how can we stop the cramps from starting again next month and the month after that? And so I suggested to her kind of what I was just describing now, a really high fiber diet and a low fat diet. And the reason I did that is researchers at Tufts University had done some studies. They had 48 women who lived on their metabolic ward for periods of time. They would give them diets that were high in fiber, low in fat, and they found they could manipulate their hormone levels. So I said, let's try that. And so I suggested to her that she avoid animal products completely. Because if you do that, two things happen. First of all, you're avoiding all the animal fat. That's good. But also, everything you're eating is a plant. And that means every morsel of food that goes into your body has fiber in it. So she put that to work. And she called me back the next month. And she said, Dr. Barnard, this is really amazing. I got my period today, but I had absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. This hasn't been this way for years. And the next month, same thing, next month, same thing. And then she started loosening up the diet a little bit, and her pain all came back. So I realized, all right, this works, but we need to do a research study to really prove it. So with our colleagues at the Georgetown University Department of OBGYN, we brought in a large group of women. They all had substantial menstrual pain. We did the same diet. It works really well, but it didn't just affect that. It affected premenstrual symptoms like water retention and bloating and moodiness. But there was also one woman in the study. We asked all the women in the study to not be using the pill. If they were sexually active, they had to use some other form of birth control because this is a hormone study. We don't want them taking the pill. And one of the women in the study said, Dr. Barnard, I don't take the pill. I don't use birth control at all because I'm infertile. I said, what do you mean? She said, my husband and I were trying for years. We got tested. It's not him, it's me. I'm infertile. I don't ovulate. I'm just infertile. The second month that she was on the plant-based diet, she came in and she said, Dr. Barnard, I've got some news for you.
Good news and bad news.
The bad news is I'm dropping out of your study. The good news is I am pregnant.
Yeah.
And what happened was her body was out of balance all those years from eating, you know what we grew up eating, chicken nuggets and burgers and all those things that are giving you, they're not giving you the fiber your body needs. They're giving you way too much fat. And so your hormone control dial is turned way off to the side. So once you get your body back in balance, it's amazing what you can do. And then we followed that with research studies at the other end of the reproductive window at menopause, finding out that we could take women who've got terrible hot flashes, and about 9 out of 10 times you can make them go away.
Very good. Very good. And with that, I want to, talk about, what's happening in our websites, what's happening with Dr. Neal Barnard and some of the things that he's doing. But I also want to talk about whenyounneedafriend.com. This is where we take ownership for our life. This is where we embrace new truths. And I absolutely love, my body thrives on vegetables and fruit. My body thrives, and I know it. And I know it. And so it's time for us to really tune in, listen, to create that balance. I know, like I said at the beginning, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. With everything and the busyness in our life, then what happens is we get out of balance, and we see the signs all over the place. What does your refrigerator look like right now? And I whiffed down a salad before I started my class with Dr. Neal Barnard, because that's how I thrive. I love vegetables, and I don't know if I would have agreed with that statement 12, 13 years ago. And so you start something new, a step or whatever it is, and take that leap of trying something different and new. And that's when you go to whenyounneedafriend.com. While you're there, please subscribe, because we're trying to kind of wean ourselves from social media that is controlling this information. Actually, they don't want you to know about these things, and that you can reverse disease by changing your diet and creating balance in your life. God forbid that would get out, because then you wouldn't have to take a pill for all the other things that they're telling you to take a pill for. So with that in mind, I would want you to go to whenyounneedafriend.com. Please subscribe, like, and follow me on all social media. Make sure that you check out my sponsors. Support my sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. Check out my workshops that I've done in the past. Also, my Shop Now bag. These are all Lily approved items, whether it's makeup or pain management without medication. It's just, and without any chemicals or synthetics. So go to whenyounneedafriend.com. Some of those products are affiliates, but some of them are not. I just love them, and I want you to have that. And if it is an affiliate, it helps with the expenses of the classroom. And last, I want you to know that on November 3rd and 4th, this is part of creating balance in your life. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Bradley Nelson. Dr. Bradley Nelson is coming to Florida November 3rd and 4th. We're doing an emotion code, body code, 2-day seminar in Cape Canaveral, Florida. So if you're trying to figure out why you're doing what you're doing, you can create balance there. Dr. Bradley Nelson will teach you how to tap into your subconscious mind so that you can release whatever is in there, whether it belongs to you or belongs to emotions from past generations that were handed down to you. So it is time for you to do whatever it takes. Last but not least, as you know, the classroom is funded by sponsors and generosity of the people. So I ask that different ways that you can support the classroom. One of them is you could donate, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation. I don't care what that amount is, whatever you can to be a part of this class. And then there's also, you can help with your time, your talent, your treasure. Just sharing this class, just sharing this program will help with the algorithms. So once there's like feedback and people engaging and talking, the algorithms cannot remove this information. So it's very important that we behave with that balance, that we are the 99%. We are the ones that are choosing our body and what we put into our body. So I want to encourage you to do whatever it takes to take that ownership for yourself as well. So today we are grateful to have Dr. Neal Barnard in the classroom. Dr. Neal Barnard's been coming, I don't know, it's been like maybe 6 years, 5 years. I don't know. It's been a long time that we've had so many times that Dr. Neal Barnard has come into the classroom. And it's been a while since we've had him back, and that's how busy he is. So share a little bit about some of the research, and you can find him at P as in Paul, C as in cat, R as in rabbit, M as in monkey.com. So let's do the P as in peacock. Let's do all animals. So peacock, cat, rabbit, monkey.com. So tell us what you've been doing since you've been in the classroom. Some of the
we've been so busy in many different ways. One study that we recently completed was a comparison. We wanted to see how a plant-based diet that I've been describing, how would that compare to, say, a Mediterranean diet? Because many people are attracted to that idea. Although I have to say that they're attracted more to the idea than to the food itself. The idea of driving along at sunset along the coast of Italy sounds really a lovely thing, whether you're eating or not. But we brought in people who wanted to lose some weight, 62 people, and half of them went on a Mediterranean diet, which meant eating maybe more fish as opposed to beef, noodles and vegetables and things like that, with olive oil instead of butter. And then the other half went on a totally vegan diet. And when I say vegan, I don't mean someone from the planet Vegas. I just mean no animal products at all. So they would have vegetables and fruits and beans and whole grains, and without any limitations on portions. They could eat as much as they want. So a bean burrito or spaghetti with tomato sauce or whatever. After 16 weeks, everybody switched. And they went on the opposite diet. So everybody tried both diets in different orders.
Did you do blood work before the switch?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And what we did is the first thing we found is that the Mediterranean diet sounds really easy. And it sounds really kind of attractive. However, as week 2 and week 3 and week 4 arrived, people started to get kind of frustrated with it because they weren't really losing weight very well. And the question was, well, why is that? And it's because there's a fair amount of fat in the fish and the chicken, and especially in the olive oil, that it's pretty dense in calories. But on the plant-based diet, it did seem a little strange to them in some cases to start a vegan diet, because they probably thought you have to acquire a taste for folk music or wear tie-dye clothes to go on a vegan diet. And they took them a little while to learn that that wasn't the case. And it became pretty easy, but they were losing weight like crazy. So then after 16 weeks, everybody switched, and the people who had been doing Mediterranean and now started the plant-based diet suddenly started losing weight really easily, and they really liked that. The people, though, who had been on the vegan diet and then went to Mediterranean, they thought that they were going to like, oh, I'm going to bring back a little cheese and some fish and whatever. They didn't like it. Their tastes had changed during that 16-week period. And these weren't the things that they really wanted anymore. And as the pounds started to come back on, they got kind of angry with us. And we would get together every week, and it was an amazing thing to hear people's reactions to these diets. Now, I will say this. The plant-based diet was better for weight and better for cholesterol. You're not eating cholesterol, so it makes your cholesterol drop. But the Mediterranean diet turned out to be slightly better for blood pressure. They were both good for blood pressure, but the Mediterranean diet seemed to lower it a little bit more. And I am guessing that that has to do with certain natural compounds in olive oil. I'm guessing that might be blood pressure lowering. So that was an interesting study for us to be able to actually put these things to the test. So we're continuing that kind of work, but it's really important for us to not just do studies and then publish them in a medical journal and let them gather dust. What we have to do is to get the word out. So we began a series of programs called One Healthy World, where we're doing broadcasts in English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, and then a special English language program for people in India and the Indian subcontinent. And it's been a lot of fun to get the word out in that way. And it's been fun for me to brush up on my French a little bit to be able to give a lecture about diabetes in a different language.
Wow.
But we're
To give a
discovering,
lecture in a different language?
well,
That's really good.
I got to tell you, I'm never really entirely comfortable with this, but it's an important thing because you can go to some other countries and they're not as familiar with, say, a plant-based diet as we might be here in America.
Yeah.
That said, in every country, every culture has their grain. In the United States, it might be wheat. In Europe, it's wheat. But if it's in Asia, it's rice. Or in South America, it might be quinoa.
Mhm.
And they've got a bean. Here in North America, it might be navy beans. But in Greece or Italy, it might be the chickpea.
Mhm.
And in Japan, it's the soybean. And everybody has their own vegetables. So you just figure, okay, what's your thing? And how do you want to put it together? And you're not constrained by that. You may have grown up in Italy, but you might want to eat like you live in Spain. You can do that. For me, growing up in North Dakota, I never heard of hummus, but I'm allowed to have it. So you make your own choices. And the fun of it is that it works no matter where you are, no matter what culture you grew up with.
So what about, because again, I don't know if you know who Dr. Stephen Sinatra is, but he also talks about, well, he passed away, gosh, last year or maybe 2 years ago. The time is just like, it's just blending together, you know? But he talked about the importance of olive oil and the importance of, you know, not having too low cholesterol, because too low cholesterol can cause harm too, because they're saying that the cholesterol, that it used to be a certain level and then they decreased it to give you statins. And you were the one that informed us that there's a class action lawsuit about statins. Before you, I'd love for you to tell that story for someone that maybe has not heard about the class action lawsuit. You tell the story about the guy in Florida, the rocket science, or the
Right.
guy that works for NASA. Share that story because people need to wake up about these statins.
Yeah, this was really a terrible thing. Statins have been, and don't get me wrong, those statins have a role. A statin drug like Lipitor or Mevacor will lower cholesterol. That's a good thing because high cholesterol level can lead to heart attacks and all kinds of problems you don't want. But there was a remarkable situation. There was a NASA astronaut who was also a physician. His name was Dwayne Gravelin. And one day he got home from work and he drove into his driveway and there was a woman at his front door. And he looked at her and she looked at him and he said, "Can I help you? Is there something that you need from me?" And she said, "Dwayne, don't you recognize me? I'm your wife." And she sticks him in the car. They go to the emergency room and she says, "My husband has lost his memory. He doesn't recognize me." And they started doing neurological testing on him, and his memory was filled with all these holes. And so the doctor said, "Well, what is new in your life?" And the only new thing was he had started taking Lipitor about 4 weeks earlier. And they thought, well, I don't know. I mean, Lipitor is a pretty safe drug. I mean, it's a statin. But they thought, well, let's stop it. His memory came back.
Mhm.
But so did his cholesterol. His cholesterol went up again. So they started the Mevacor again at half the dose. And inside of a month, his memory was wiped out, everything after age 13. They take the Lipitor, they put it in the trash, and he gets his memory back. And they write to the FDA. And they say, you may not be aware of this potential side effect, but it looks like for some people, maybe rare cases, it causes these massive memory deficits. Well, they started getting hundreds of reports. Now, don't get me wrong. The statin drugs have a role, and for many people, they're just life-saving. However, about 90% of people on a statin are treating a high cholesterol level that they got because they're eating meat and cheese and things that drive it up. And if they would stop the unhealthy diet, they could
Yeah,
probably stop their statin
yeah.
in 9 out of 10 cases. So that's where we are. And now doctors recognize that. And that was the tip of the iceberg. There are many other issues with statins. They increase body weight, they slightly increase your risk of diabetes and all kinds of things that we just don't want to have happen. So
You
there
know,
we are.
it dawned on me as I do these, it's been 12 years since I've been doing this, and it dawned on me that, you know, if there wasn't a medication to lower cholesterol or a medication to lower diabetes, to lower your blood sugar levels, if there wasn't a medication, How would we behave differently if we wanted to change our life, to improve our health? And these, sometimes I think these pills and these prescriptions that our doctors are writing, they are keeping their patients from trying to find the root cause of the reason why they have diabetes or heart conditions. What is your your research on people that have chosen no medication, they're going to change their diet and lifestyle? Have you looked at other forms of diet, and is the plant food one the one that is the standard?
Yeah, well, yes. Well, first of all, it's amazing to me that you said what you did about what if medications weren't there. When the statins first came out, they were prescribed for patients, and the patients were told, you must follow a healthy diet, a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, and take your medication. And when you studied people who were on statins, they were actually following pretty good diets compared to every other people because they were told to by their doctors.
Mhm.
As the years have gone by, something disturbing has happened, which is that people are using the statins instead of a healthier diet.
Mhm.
So in some cases, they're thinking, I can eat a big steak because I'm on a statin. It's okay. And that's really a problem. Now, in our studies, yes, as you can imagine, when we take people off of the meat and the dairy products, there's no cholesterol left in their diet. There's no animal fat left. And so their cholesterol levels drop just dramatically. But the one that I'm kind of worried about right now is semaglutide, which is Wegovy or Ozempic. They're being marketed like crazy, and they do something good in a
Oh
way.
my, yes.
This is once a week you inject yourself, and it kills your appetite. And so people lose a whole lot of weight. Um, and there are a whole bunch of issues with this. They do effectively cause weight loss, and you could mention that, or you could say that they have some health benefits as a result, but they have a whole bunch of other issues. The first is they cost about $15,000 a year. And for $15,000 a year, you can meet every week with a dietitian to help you with your diet and get a monthly gym membership and about $500 worth of groceries every month and have spending money left over. You can get a lot of support to lose weight instead of using the drug. But they also cause nausea, vomiting, all kinds of intestinal problems that are really problematic. And you can't stay on them forever because of the expense and the side effects. And so most people end up quitting. And when they do, all the weight they lost comes right on back.
Yep.
So you think, well, what have I done? I didn't learn anything.
No.
It didn't improve my diet. So I'm not really sure that these drugs for most people are really getting them where they need to go.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's where doctors have stopped. There's that disconnect again, where they're able to listen to the pharmaceutical industry. I was a medical rep. I was a medical rep many, many years ago before I even started the show. And then I changed to bring holistic and more functional and alternative things that doctors could use, because doctors, they were not making ends meet. They could not, because they had to follow, 7-minute rule. They couldn't spend, if they spent any time extra with their patients, they were losing money, and they were getting rewarded for prescribing. So people were getting seduced to the point where me as a medical rep, and I was not able to even give a pen. I could not even give a pen because that was considered seduction, to seduce somebody's business. However, the pharmaceutical industry could take a doctor to the beautiful island of the Bahamas and do an educational thing there, all expenses paid, but that was not seducing anyone. So there's a disconnect with what's really happening in the world today. And I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that we've been desensitized, we've been lied to from the beginning. And what do you think it's going to take, Dr. Barnard, to get people to wake up, and say, if I didn't have a pill, my registered service mark is, you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. It's not that I'm against the pill. I'm for doing whatever we can naturally so that the body will restore to its natural health. But what do you think you can tell someone who's listening today and saying, well, I'll take the pill, it's easier, and not change their lifestyle? What would you like to say to them to kind of wake them up?
Yeah, the first thing, yeah, I think you asked really the most important question. One thing should be said is that for any doctor who imagines that the patient would just rather pop pills, they would throw their pills in the trash if they really believed that a diet change that they could do would get them where they want to go. I think part of the
Mm,
issue is that the doctors and the patients felt that diet wasn't really strong enough.
mm.
And you could understand why people might say that. Because back when I was in medical school, they would say a cholesterol-lowering diet is less red meat, smaller portions, don't eat meat more than a size of a deck of cards,
This was
take the
making
skin off
sense.
your chicken, all that stuff. And that didn't really lower cholesterol levels very well. And it didn't help people lose weight. So people thought diet was no good. But then we went a step further. And when we really took the animal products out of the diet, things changed. It was sort of like when when the patient quit smoking. It was way better than cutting down on smoking. And so suddenly we found that we could get dramatically better results. But it starts with information. There's a lot of noise out there. People are told, don't eat carbs. Don't eat a potato or a sweet potato or bread or pasta or rice because those are carbs. And then we realized, wait a minute, those are actually healthful foods for people. So it does take a little bit of learning and understanding how these things work. And doctors need to learn too. In medical school, unfortunately, they don't teach nutrition to nearly the extent that they should, but I'm hoping that that will change.
And I'm
Finally,
hoping that with your
oh,
work.
sorry.
No, no, I thought you were done, but with your work, I'm hoping that too.
Yes,
That's great.
exactly. And the last thing is that we need our federal government here in the United States and governments elsewhere in the world to really embrace healthy eating too. They get pummeled by industry, and industry makes political contributions. And so that kind of muddies the water a little bit. But here at the Physicians Committee, we're working with the government as well to be more honest and helpful so that people can be on healthy diets.
What are some of the things you're asking them to change? Because the food pyramid is crazy. It's
Yeah,
crazy because my daughter is about to do her second half Ironman, and we're going to go cheer her on. But if I ate as much carbs as she did, then it would not support me. Everybody is a different person, a different response to whatever they're consuming. So when it comes to carbs or vegetables, what are you proposing for this new, hopefully, diet?
sure. Well, the government already has the nugget of some pretty good things. The government already says vegetables are every bit as good for you as we thought. Same with fruits, same with whole grains. That's good. Where the government gets a little crazy is when it comes to protein. The government says you need protein, and they kind of give a preference to animal protein. That's turned out to be a bit of a mistake because it turns out that if you get your protein from beans and nuts and seeds and grains and so forth, you're getting all the protein your body needs without all the baggage that comes along with it, without the cholesterol and animal hormones and that kind of thing. So we're encouraging the government to not just say you need protein, but to specifically promote plant sources of protein and to get rid of the dairy group. Now, there is a dairy group, and to its credit, soy milk is considered okay. That's good. But I think we should go further than that. You don't really need cow's milk products at all. And if we avoid them, it would be good for us. It'd be good for the cow, as we were talking about earlier. It'll also be good for our environment because the cows are busily belching methane into the environment. We got about 100 million of them in the United States right now. And if we change our diets, it'll help our bodies, it'll help the animals, it'll help our earth, and it probably will help our kids to learn some healthier habits too.
And I agree with you. I love that vision that you have, and I share that with you. And I love with your music that you do. I love that one song. I'm trying to remember the name of the song where it's the story of this cow that's taken away and then freed, and to see all the cows that have been saved from the slaughterhouses and how they rejoice when they are free. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah,
And
our
your in
band's
your group, in your group, so if
Yeah,
people want to
thank
buy.
you. Yeah, the band is called Carbon Works. And if you go to YouTube, you just look at the Carbon Works channel. It's like we are made of carbon and these are our works. YouTube has probably 24 of our videos, including the one that you described. That one's called Louder Than Words.
Louder than
Um,
words,
and
yes.
and I got to tell you, when the pandemic hit, we did one that's a lullaby. It's in French. It's called Tout ira bien, which means everything's going to be okay.
Mhm.
And it has cute animals all kind of bedding down to go to sleep. And we made it for kids who are a little bit, who at the time of the pandemic were taken out of school and nervous. So I hope people have a chance to look.
Well, we will. I'll actually put the YouTube channel in the description, because it is a wonderful, you have a wonderful group, and I would love to listen to you guys live. So do you guys go on tour, or you just basically stick around in Washington?
I actually just got back from London. We had a show in London.
I saw
Yeah,
that. I saw
yeah.
that. I didn't know if that was just recent. Okay.
Our album, the latest album, is called Vanishing Act. And if you go to Amazon and you look up Carbonworks Vanishing Act, you'll see it. It's on vinyl, it's on CD, it's on downloads and everything.
Wonderful.
Tin cans
Wonderful.
and string everywhere you can hear music.
And the works is the RX, right? At the end?
Yeah, WORKS.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought you had an X at the
No,
end.
we're not that modern, no.
Well, this has been great. When we started this conversation, it was about creating balance. We didn't know where the conversation was going to go, but we really tapped into different areas of our life that we really need to sit with and say, what was it that I heard today that it's making me want to change, make a shift. Share it in the comments below what that shift is for you. Maybe some research that you will do in the future, and just share it so we can grow as a community together. Dr. Neal Barnard, you're an amazing man. I'm so grateful every time you come into the classroom, and I hope it won't be another 2-3 years before you come back. So I hope you'll be coming back soon.
I look forward to it.
Yes, and please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Neal Barnard wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional